Used by the bombastic barrage of national and international economic, political, and social news? Tired of the daily drivel of sound bites and talking heads? Do you want the truth about economic, political, and social issues from a Christian perspective? Welcome to Christian Economic Perspective, hosted by Oliver Burrows, an ordained minister, college professor, and the executive editor of economictruth.org. Each week, you will hear an hour of cutting-edge analysis, explanations, interviews, and answers to your questions. Now here's your host, Oliver Burrows.
Good morning and welcome to our program. We are beginning a series of broadcasts now that I know even those of you who are not listening in the central Wisconsin area, this applies to your area as well. Talking about the issues of drug abuse, drug treatment, and the work that those in the Christian community are doing. We'll be talking with law enforcement people. We'll be talking with government officials, we hope, as well as today our guest is Linda Larson-Schlitz. She is the head of Randlin Homes here in Wausau. They minister to homeless veterans, first and foremost, but also those who are facing alcohol and other drug problems as well as homelessness. Linda, welcome back to the program.
Oh, thank you so much, Oliver. We really appreciate this opportunity.
Well, you know, a lot of people hear about Randlin Homes, but there's many people who do not know about the origins and the things that you and your husband, Ralph, have done over the past, how many years is it now?
This is going into 12.
So you could, for 12 years. So go back and give us, that would take us back to about 2001. Go back and give us the history of the efforts that you're making through Randlin Homes.
Well, it all began with my husband doing work in helping to start a group home for people coming out of treatment from North Central Health Care Center. And he helped to get that one and then a second home going. Then we realized that this was really a direction that we wanted to go in collaboration with the Veterans Program through the Job Center, because there was at least 5 or 6 veterans at any given time down at Salvation Army, and my coworker Gary Albrecht said there's money out there for veterans, and there's so lack of treatment. The VA homeless program, you need to be medically and mentally stable to go into that homeless program. So there was a need for that fall through the gap veterans, so we started Randlin Homes in hopes of being able to provide those services in our own local community.
Now, your husband was dealing with people coming out of North Central Health Care Center. Now, were these people coming out with mental challenges, alcohol and other drug abuse challenges, a combination thereof?
About 95% of the people we've served over the years have dual diagnosis with mental health and substance abuse.
Now, as many people don't know yet, but you and I do, 28th of June, meaning this coming Friday, St. Joseph's Hospital is shutting down its detoxification unit. There'll be 40 jobs that are lost. We're being told that because of the significant number of relapses that people facing these problems have, that under the provisions of the Affordable Care Act, they're facing some challenges. Now, I haven't had time to research all of it yet. That's what I'm being told. Without that detoxification unit, the nearest unit is going to be almost 100 miles away. This is going to add to the challenges of dealing with these issues in this area, isn't it?
We have already gotten a referral. I believe it was even the day that came into the paper, where a gentleman was supposed to be going to St. Joseph's, and they were kind of in a panic because he needed to be out of North Central that day, and they wanted us to take him. And so we've already seen the implications, and it is going to be huge because there really isn't a place for these folks to go. They may get a 24-hour, 48 hours of intensive detox, but then where do they go?
Well, so we go back and we look at this problem. You're dealing first and foremost with veterans and those who are homeless. Now, I know people, because we've had Reverend Dennis Code, and I may get him back, from Springfield, Missouri, where he goes out and ministers to hundreds of homeless who are living in the woods outside of Springfield, Missouri, which is a lot bigger town than even Wausau, by far, 3 to 4 times as large, I believe. and talks about the nature of the problem. Their whole families out there living in the woods because there's no alternative. How many homeless veterans do we estimate we have here in the Wausau, Marathon County area?
Well, I haven't looked at that statistic as of late, and it's very difficult to measure that. But when we first started this, there was an estimated 350 homeless veterans in Marathon County. They kind of, as a rule, have looked at the general homeless population, and then it was about 30% of that population were homeless veterans. But the way that they find these veterans is going to some of the homeless programs. They go through the Service Point in Wisconsin, which is a program where you document the homeless people that you're working with, but it doesn't look at all those people that are living under the bridges and are staying in their cars, which we have a veteran that came in last week that was going to spend time in his car. 3 days later, now just this week, he's in getting a heart catheterization. He is waiting for a heart transplant, and he was going to be in his car. So there is a big problem out there, but it's very difficult to measure because we really don't know where they all are.
And knowing that can also mean, in terms of counting them, census, and other things related to that, like other issues such as undocumented workers, we have an undercounting issue. And as a result of that, the monies that are available from governmental sources may not be coming as much as they could, but then everybody's probably got the undercounting problem. But with what Ralph did, and then you came into the picture very, very quickly, the problem is not getting any less, is it?
No, it is not getting any less. It is getting more because they don't have the treatment. They don't have the long-term. When we first started, there was a 30-day inpatient program at the health care center very shortly, or it might have been right around that time when that 30-day program ceased. And then they had to go to Marshfield, but to go to Marshfield, you had to be a county worker or have insurance, or a county resident, rather. So by 2003 or 4, even the funding had pretty much ended from Marathon County for the people with substance abuse.
So the very things that we talk about, alcohol and other drug abuse, and the homelessness, and also obviously the people who are unable to hold jobs, you've got a three-headed monster, if you will. And Randlin Homes also, to try to become more economically self-sufficient, have had programs, and we'll talk about those after the break, to help with the issue of employability as well.
Right, exactly. We've tried to develop training programs and give these people the opportunity to regain their self-respect, so to speak, because many of them feel very hopeless when they come in. They've lost their jobs. They haven't been able to get a job. So we allow them an opportunity to reestablish that sense of credibility, to get some work experience, to have what's been the most meaningful and probably the main reason that we initially started that was to give them a purpose. Because without a purpose, why go on? And that's the thing that a lot of these people, that's why they do what they do, because they feel like they're needed and they're wanted, and they are.
Again, this is Christian Economic Perspective. I'm your host, Oliver Burrows. Our topic today, the drug problem and Christian alternatives. In dealing with that, my guest, Linda Larson-Schlitz, Randlin Homes. When we come back, we're going to learn more about how the programs work after this time out. Don't go away. Welcome back to Christian Economic Perspective. I'm your host, Oliver Burrows. Our topic today, the rising drug problem in our area, and I know if you're listening in other areas, it's the same for you, and Christian alternatives for treatment. My guest, Linda Larson-Schlitz, the head of Randlin Homes here in Wausau. One of the things that we didn't talk about before the break, although your charter is, and you have never in 12 years of operation turned away a homeless veteran because that's your first group served, tell us a little bit about some of the others you serve.
Well, It started, with the purpose, and our very first resident was a veteran. But as time went on and we didn't get the veteran referrals, not that there wasn't needs, but they just didn't come across our doorstep, we went to Betty Wimmer at one point, who was the National Adjutant for Disabled American Veterans. And there was a concern raised about the fact that we weren't 100% veterans. So I asked Betty, what do we do? We've got 3 beds open. We've got a non-veteran who has funding that can help to pay the bills so that we could allow that veteran to have a home. What do we do? And she said, well, that's obvious. You serve the people who can help to serve the veteran. And if all we serve is one veteran, we have helped one veteran that is no longer going to be on the street. So that's what we've done throughout the years, and as it is right now, without those non-veterans that have filled that gap, we I can tell you wouldn't exist today, because so many of our veterans that do come in are disabled and aren't able to work, aren't able to go out there. A great number of them do not have disability, even though...
Not even a disability rating for their time in the military service, correct?
No, and part of what we have served, like I said, is that fall through the gap veteran, one of which was in the military, and he had somewhat of a nervous breakdown. He was 2 months short of his 2 years that they need to be in order to get that benefit, as well as being a peacetime veteran. Peacetime veterans also don't get benefits, nor if they were in the National Guard. There's just so many rules I was totally unaware of.
Now, those who have been in combat zones, even National Guard, qualify, but only if they have two years of tours, or is it even more complicated than that?
Oh, it's very complicated, and injury is involved, and depending on the injury, and if you were in Vietnam and on a ship off of the coast, you can't get disability for Agent Orange, even though, there's just a lot of complications to the programs.
So as you then have broadened out the scope with the adjutant from Disabled
American Veterans,
DAV, this has presented another set of challenges, because when you bring in the homeless who are non-veterans, they have a different set of reasons why they got where they got.
Exactly. Yeah, there is. And there's the veterans in the program have been very grateful for what they call their comrades, because they all have one common bond, that number one, they're homeless, they're unemployed, and they have an issue that led them there. Maybe it wasn't always substance abuse, but a mental health issue or a physical disability that led to these things. But they all have a number of things in common. So, but it does bring other challenges to us, especially some of the community perception that when we have veterans, always have had veterans as our priority, we don't have more veterans always than we do non-veterans, just because we have not gotten referrals for them, or the veterans that come may want to continue to drink. And obviously, so if there have been any veterans we've turned away, it has been those that are not interested in a clean, sober environment.
See, that's one of the things that people, I think, mistakenly assume, that either A, they realize that they have a problem, or B, that even if they realize it, they want to do something about it.
Right.
And so this is where your comprehensive program, because you're dealing with the tripartite person, soul, body, spirit. As you try to deal with these issues, you find that there are some who are not in a position of either recognition or willingness to accept the help and to come under the guidelines of the program. Talk a little bit about the guidelines of your program.
Well, we start out with a treatment, kind of a thinking, educational, and I guess the way that we're not a treatment program, but we're very focused on recovery. We are not, we are educational in the sense that if you look at it as a school, I guess that's kind of how we would like to liken our program, is to a school. And they're coming in and they are going to learn how to, first and primary, stay clean and sober. how to live life on life's terms without using addictive behaviors or other ill-found ways of dealing with life that has led them to where they're at today.
Now I got to interrupt you there.
Sure.
Addictive behaviors. So you're not just looking at the physiological, because that's the part that is the most potentially dangerous until they've gone through detoxification. And even the detoxification process is voluntary, and we've had changes from the federal government, Health and Human Services, DHS. No, that's Homeland Security. Well, I got the acronym wrong, but I know people know Health and Human Services, HHS. There we go. Bottom line is, we can't put people involuntarily into facilities for alcohol or other drug issues unless there's an underlying mental health issue. We've talked about this at the government level. So you've got people who are in various stages of recognition, acknowledgement, and physiological challenge, with decreasing options to deal with the detoxification issue. So you're dealing with a higher level of acuity now with incoming residents potentially, correct?
It's unbelievable, and we've had a couple recently because of the lack of services now. We have people who, and the way that it has been presented is that because the detox program is so minimal at the healthcare center, I mean, they're doing the best they can, but there isn't the medical model as far as getting the medication. They're kind of, put in a room and, kind of have to get through it. But then once they get out, the problem, and it has been a problem for a long time, and I know there was a review that was done a number of years ago about the collaboration between the mental health and the AODA programs. But what so many of our people have great difficulty with is that they aren't getting the underlying mental health issue addressed because they can't stay sober long enough for that to come through. So that's part of our challenge. If we can keep them sober long enough to show that, yes, that bipolar is not just because they're drinking all the time, or that depression or that anxiety disorder isn't just a result of chronic alcohol or drug abuse, then maybe we've got a chance to stabilize them.
Now, right now you have how many homes?
We are selling our 4th Avenue home, unfortunately, because we just didn't have enough people that were working or enough funding. So we have 5 homes. One of them is a duplex, so that would be counted kind of 2 apartments, and then 2 other homes that are also somewhat transitional, and then our 20-bed homes. So we got five places that people stay. So
right now, when you are and I hate to say this, but I'm going to use the term at capacity, about how many people are you dealing with in a residential sense right now?
We can put in about 36 people comfortably, somewhere about 36.
And to help with this process of reintegration, redeveloping even basic employability skills, you also have 1 or 2 facilities now for sale of products. And what are some of the other services that Randlin Homes residents offer to the community?
Well, we've just gotten some kind of new things that we're developing. One of them is one of our gentlemen who became, he's really can't do the job that he's done his whole life because he's got some major physical problems. So we've been working on trying to train him in doing some light duty sorts of things, and he's discovered the need for reupholstering furniture that comes in that is damaged. We were fortunate enough to get a huge amount of upholstery donated, so he started putzing around with that, and now he's being some people are coming and requesting him to reupholster their furniture, including myself. So we're hiring him to do 2 of our antique chairs, and he's doing a marvelous job.
So there's that type of thing. Now, in the past, you've had snow removal services?
Right. We did have snow removal and lawn care, but those businesses ended up, we needed to let go of those, unfortunately, in part because the substance abuse is a problem, and with insurance changing, so many of our people can't be on our insurance anymore, so we don't have drivers. It was a very taxing job for a lot of people, and physically a big majority of our people couldn't do that. So we have turned that into a business opportunity for our residents so that they can develop their own business doing the lawn care and snow removal. And one of our success stories is a vet, a Marine, that left us, I think, 2 years ago, and he actually came back and hired 2 of our residents last month to do a huge lawn care job and put new sod in. So he was able to train them in laying sod, which they'd never done before, and he's got a flourishing business. He didn't even want me to name his name because he's too busy to do everything right now.
Well, we'll keep that to ourselves. So, but there's a success story.
Yes.
Got through your program, started his own business, able to hire other people, even if it's on a temporary basis, a seasonal basis. When you take a look then at I'm going to call them thrift stores for lack of a better term. Is there a better term for the stores? I'm sure, it's sort of like, what they used to call a housewife, a domestic engineer. So what is the term for your store there on 6th Street?
Well, it's the name of it, which we changed from thrift store to One More Time Home Furnishings. And when we started the Bridge Street store, the purpose of that was to kind of upscale the clientele and the kind of product that we had, because we were really going broke on the clothes and the trinkets. So we changed and got really high-end furniture and housewares. So we've kind of changed it to a upper level. And I don't know, if you can come up with a term, that'd be great.
I'm reminded of that one TV program where it said we're moving on up to the east side.
Yeah.
Well, you're on the east side of Wausau, so there you go right there.
There we go.
You're moving to more, moving away from the thrift store model into more of what we'll call gently used products that
right.
that people can take home and really equip their houses nicely.
Right, because everything we have is cleaned, refinished, or rehabilitated in some capacity, sometimes reupholstered. So we really have an upscale thing there at the 6th Street store. Again,
this is Christian Economic Perspective. I'm your host, Oliver Burrows. Our topic today, the increasing drug problem in our area. We're going to talk a little bit about that, as well as the Christian treatment alternatives. My guest, Linda Larson-Schlitz, the head of Randlin Homes. When we come back, we're going to talk about the actual workings of the program and the needs that they have. Back in 2+. Don't go away. Welcome back to Christian Economic Perspective. I'm your host, Oliver Burrows. Our topic today, the rising drug problem in our area and Christian treatment alternatives. My guest, the head of Randlin Homes, Linda Larson-Schlitz. In the last segment, Linda, we talked about the fact that we were created as spiritual beings as well as physical and soulical. You deal with the mind. You're always dealing with the will and the emotions with
right.
with the homeless and the veterans and those facing addiction problems. But you do address the spiritual issues as well. And that's one thing that I don't think a lot of people have as much knowledge of. Tell us a little bit of how you and Ralph and others on your team are addressing the spiritual needs of those in your homes.
Well, we make the recovery process the foundation of our whole program. And for many of these people, they're coming out of maybe not such great church backgrounds. I'll say church or religious backgrounds. So if you try to come at them with the Bible thumping thing, sometimes there's huge resistance, if not complete defiance. So our approach is to meet them where they're at in whatever process. Most of them are familiar with the 12-step program, and most of them are very comfortable with that, which talks about accepting the fact that we can't do it, God can. We have to let him. That's kind of the foundation of that program. So what we do is we work with them at that point, and then we incorporate our own personal purpose for starting Randlin Homes, and my personal purpose for existence. In case people don't know, I'm a recovering alcoholic and drug addict myself. I have been quit using drugs 37 years ago in September. So
I didn't know 2-year-olds usually were using drugs.
Thank you. I just turned 58, so I was young. Fortunately, was young and was able to kind of get my life in pretty good order back then. So we try to bring that in, and one of the things I'm doing now is on Thursday nights. It started being an anger management group. Now it is Joyce Meyer's Battlefield of the Mind, because it's the same thing. Everything starts in the way we think. So we need to change how we think about everything in life, and we need to bring God into that so that we have the power and ability to overcome the things that lead us back into bad behaviors.
So you do that, and I know you do some work with the Recovery Bible as well.
Right. We use that, excuse me, on Saturday nights. We have what we call the Spirit Gathering, a fellowship of believers praying for the knowledge of God's will for us and the power to carry that out, which is step 11 in the 12-step program. And we use the Recovery Bible as the foundation and try to bring people into how that all ties together with their recovery process.
Now, as you have done these things over the last almost 12 years, you've seen changes in the funding that people have available to them from outside sources, and you've tried to do what you can to raise the monies to help those who aren't eligible for resources. The need continues to grow. Like everything else, the finances are shrinking, even though you've got the upscale now center with home furnishings and things of that nature to help support the work and to provide the residents with some employability training
right.
and building at least a modicum of skills there. What are you doing now to try to meet that financial gap?
Well, we just opened our education and training center over on 4317 Stewart Avenue, next to Frank's Gym there, and that is kind of the receiving area for the new donated items and where they do some of that rehabilitation. And the front part of that is the gallery, which has been supported by the community in the past, and we are trying to get that off the ground by teaching people. As a matter of fact, at 10:30, I'm supposed to be teaching a class on doing landscape painting, acrylic landscape painting, and then the idea there is for people to be able to learn those skills so that they have some additional things they can do on the side through the internet, sell their paintings, their jewelry, their artwork, the things that they do. All of the woodworking that they're doing, the praying soldiers, all of those then are going to be available for order from the community. And we're also offering the community the opportunity to come and take some of these classes that are offered by volunteers, as well as some of our students are learning how to do these things, and we'll be training community members as well.
So they're going to turn around and teach after they've learned with the skills God's given them. This is to help them become at least somewhat self-supportive while they're in the treatment program. Now, how long does your program optimally run for a resident?
Well, the goal for them coming to the training program is a 1 year. That's what we ask for people to commit to, and not all people want to do that. So in our first 30-day evaluation, we try to determine if they're just there to get a job, we try and get that going within that first 30 days and get them moving on. The others are there for the 1 year because that's kind of, we don't get better in a couple weeks or even a couple months. So that's kind of
they
the
didn't
goal.
get there in a day, a week, a month, or a year.
Yeah.
And even to try to see changes, even with God working in them and through them, even a year is a tough challenge for many.
Yes, we've kind of modeled after the Delancey Street Foundation, and theirs is a minimum of 2 years, and they operate their entire program with strictly volunteers or students in the program. So we do that, but, people have said, well, it's a 1-year program. You've had people there for years. You know what? That's true. And we're in a dilemma. What do we do with folks that have no income? We haven't been able to get them disability. They're not functional enough to get a job, or I can't get them a job. And then they have no place to go. They have no family. And we've got one fellow that's been there for 4 years. And he is up. He's reliable. He is faithful to go and do his 20 hours. You know, he volunteers about 20 hours. But to get a full-time job enough to be self-sufficient, it's just probably not going to happen.
So, in some cases, even when their lives are changed spiritually, physiologically, mentally, there's still other barriers to them being independent in the community.
Yeah.
So some of them do remain longer periods of time. How many of those 36 beds are filled right now?
I think we've got like 3. I think we have 3 openings at the 20 bed. All the other beds are filled in all the other homes.
So right now you're running about 91% of comfortable capacity. I'm doing the math in my head.
You're better at math than I am, but you know, we do have people that have applied. We actually got, I think Tammy said, 4 referrals from the Human Service Center or Koinonia up in Rhinelander. We get a ton of referrals because that is the other treatment program that there is up in Koinonia and Rhinelander. So we get a lot of referrals from
because
them.
They have limited capacity as well. Now, you were talking to me off air about some fundraising events that you're working on right now. Is there some other projects that are coming up?
Well, we have the second Saturday of every month, starting in July, we are going to be having an auction type thing at our new facility over there at the new kind of
Stewart
warehouse
Avenue?
on Stewart Avenue, because we get an overflow of furniture. Our storage isn't that big because we've taken half of it for training. So we're going to be auctioning off a lot of great stuff the second Saturday of every month.
Okay, and so let's see. That's starting in July, so that would be, I think, the 13th of July?
Oh, gosh, where are we?
Yeah, we got to take a quick look at our calendar here. Yep, second Saturday in July will be, the 13th. Hey, I got
13th.
it right.
Okay.
Bottom line is, there will be an opportunity for people at auction to pick up some of the furniture that has come in. You always have need of volunteers, correct?
Oh my gosh, we need volunteers so much. We really do. So,
what are some of the areas of skill? Because a lot of people say, well, I don't know what I'd have to offer, Linda. What are some of the areas of skill that people that you could use would bring?
Well, we need people to do cashiering. We need people. What I see as the greatest need is people to help with the education and training program, because we only have 2.5 paid staff. I work full time, and I work about 30-40 hours a week at Randlin Homes on my nights, evenings, and weekends. We need people to help with that training program, to actually teach our curriculum that we have, to do the grading, to maintain a actual grade book so people feel like or realize that they're in a training program, because some of these people don't feel like it's a training program because they're not getting the feedback and the report cards and all that.
What kind of classes are you offering? Because if it was in the arts area, I flunked out of art at kindergarten with stick people. So if I'm art challenged. But what are some of the other skills that you're talking about?
Well, we've got one fellow that's going to be teaching the small engine repair. We've got art, we've got jewelry making, we've got woodworking, we've got Jared's not quite ready to be teaching the upholstery, but we'll be doing that kind of thing. The refinishing of furniture and computers. Now, we got a big donation of computers, and that's why we haven't had a grand opening yet, because those computers are kind of tied up in some issues. I don't know what, but once we get the computers and the rest of our office equipment, we'll be able to set up and then start offering the community those services also.
Well, I will see what I can do, because I've got 14 computers in the bunker
where
I
wow.
work, and I've got 20 years of IT behind me.
Oh, my gosh.
So you and I will have to talk about that off air. But right now, when you take a look at this, I like to focus on solutions, but solutions usually come because there's problems. We are having, from what I'm learning through my other work in the governmental sector, an epidemic problem with heroin and other drugs. Are you seeing an increase in not only the numbers, but the acuity of the problem of alcohol and especially other drug abuse in our area?
Yes, methamphetamine has become a problem. There's a lot of different drugs out there than there used to be. Heroin wasn't something that was going on here, and it is now. And it's touching all kinds of people and families. It's not just people who have had chronic problems with this. It is anybody and everybody's children. So it does cause, it is a challenge, and it's much more difficult to treat. We had one fellow, for example, who had been on a methamphetamine binge for several days, and he came back to come into our program, but he needed detox, and we took him to North Central, and they don't detox methamphetamine. So that's another problem, is we really don't have anybody here that does that, and not having insurance or living in a county that does do that treatment, there was no place for him to go.
As you continue to minister to the whole person, tell us a little bit more in closing. You talked about the one Marine. Talk a little bit more about the successes that you've had, because sometimes I know successes are one resident at a time.
Oh, my goodness, they are. Definitely that. And our very first alternative to revocation we got in 2002, and came through probation and parole, and he was on his way to prison. And a real nice fella. He had physical disabilities, military related, but he'd never even applied. He came and was kind of sentenced. He actually had gone to the VA program and didn't make it there. So he came to us. He did his year and has lived. We just ran into him recently, and that was in 2002. He's doing great, never been in trouble again. And so those are the kinds of things. We have Nyron Bonitz, who's on our website, who just graduated, and he's one of those people we got criticized for because he had been with us for 4 years.
And he graduated from North Central
Technical College, and he just moved. He's independent, and he's just moved to Menasha.
So you've had some of those. It's always a tough challenge. If people have things to donate, or if they want to get in touch to offer to volunteer, how do they get in touch with you or with Randlin Homes?
Well, if they want to donate things, if they can call the store number, they set up all the picking up of furniture and such, and that number is 715-298-9203, 715-298-9203. And if there's other things like toilet paper, one of our number one needs, or anything else, that number would be 715-298-3700. That's 3700. And I got to go fix that phone this morning because there's an issue with it. So if you call in the next few minutes, it might not work. But otherwise, the other thing we really need is letters of support. You know, we're always battling perceptions or people in the community. When you deal with people with chronic mental illness, you know, there are at times disgruntled individuals. But we also need letters of support if we're going to get funding, because everybody requires letters of support. So anything we can get to give some letters of support to continue this program would be much appreciated. So
if they have letters of support to send, where do they send them?
That would be sent to Post Office Box 1488 in Wausau, 54402.
1488, Wausau, Wisconsin, 54402. Well, Linda, we appreciate you making the time. We know you got to get going. And as always, be blessed. And as needs come up, don't hesitate to get back in touch.
Thank you so much, Oliver.
Bye-bye now. When we come back, I want to talk to you about the Son of Man and what he requires of us, helping those in need. Again, this is Christian Economic Perspective. I'm your host, Oliver Burrows. I'll be back in 2+. Don't go away. Welcome back to Christian Economic Perspective. I'm your host, Oliver Burrows. On next week's program here on Sunny 1230, we will be talking with Melissa Daughter and one of her colleagues from the AOD partnership here in Wausau, hearing more about the challenges that we're facing with the epidemic drug problem, especially in the area of heroin, and some of the things that they are doing to address the problem educationally. And next on Experiencing the Word, I am beginning a new series of messages on the fifth of the 6 fundamental doctrines of Christianity, the resurrection from the dead, and my message is entitled At the End of Time. So when we finish Christian Economic Perspective today, join me for Experiencing the Word here on Sunny 1230. Over the last 7 weeks, especially when we had the 6-part series with Dr. Cal Beisner, I didn't have the opportunity for commentaries, and of course last week's broadcast with Kevin Hermaning from Hermaning Financial Group, I only spoke a little bit. But I want to speak to you today about how the Son of Man, Jesus Christ, has asked his children to deal with those who have needs. Now, going back to what Dr. Beisner talked about, we're not talking about facilitating people being lazy or slothful. And even as you recall, if you listened to that series, and if you didn't, please go to our website, www.CEP, for Christian Economic Perspective, cepradio.com. You'll find the archives of recent broadcasts. I'm working on all 4 years of the show, getting the files archived, because some of them are rather timely, even a year or two after the fact. And you will find, if you go back and listen to what Dr. Beisner talked about, of helping those in poverty, there are those who are indeed the equivalent of the widows in need that are talked about in the first epistle that Paul wrote to Timothy. But I want to go back to the Gospels today, in the time that I have, and I want to explain this to you because, as Linda Larson-Schlitz said, there is a need for volunteers, people to teach skills. And as I have learned in areas that I've been examining in preparation for this program, as well as work that I do in the governmental sector, the problems are vastly outstripping the resources that are available, even if they were level resources. There wasn't a reduction. And that's not the case. And sometimes, as I've said to you before, it doesn't matter how we got there. It doesn't matter how someone got there. Yes, there needs to be an acknowledgement that there's problems in life. And there has to be a willingness to address those problems. And Randlin Homes has been trying to do that, and you are going to have some who won't acknowledge or they won't work with a program. Those people, we need to pray for them, and we need to have the opportunity out there for them to come in. Because there are those, however, who are willing. As it says in Isaiah, if we are willing and obedient, we will eat the good of the land. And even for those facing mental health challenges, some of which have spiritual components, some of which have chemical dependency, addiction components, and there are situations, and I'll give an example of hypo or hyperglycemia that can manifest themselves as mental health issues. So there are times when there are truly physiological components to mental health. And all those things have to be dealt with. That's why at Randlin Homes and other places where they deal with all three, the body, the soul, and the spirit, that is dealing with the whole person. And when Jesus came, there were times that he fed the 4,000 or the 5,000 because they'd been there, they'd listened to the word, and he followed up. As the Bible says, signs and wonders, such as the feeding of the 5,000, will follow the preaching of the word. But there are times when you and I need to be out there, and we need to be the hands and the feet of the King. I'm in Matthew, the 25th chapter, and I'm beginning in the 31st verse, and I'll pick some verses within that range of 31 to 40. When the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the holy angels with him, then he will sit on the throne of his glory. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate them one from another, as a shepherd divides his sheep from his goats. And he will set his sheep on his right hand, but the goats on the left. Then the King will say to those on his right hand, "Come, you blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world." Here's the key. When we are about the Father's business, "For when I was hungry, you gave me food. I was thirsty, you gave me drink. I was a stranger, you took me in. I was naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me." Then the righteous will answer him, saying, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you drink? When did we see you a stranger and take you in, or naked and clothe you? Or when did we see you sick or in prison and come to you? And the king will say to them, Assuredly I say to you, inasmuch as you did it to one of the least of these, my brethren, you did it to me. When we help those who are unable to help themselves, when they are willing, when they will come under a program of dealing with them spiritually, meeting them where they are, if they've had those rugged experiences with that spirit of religion, and we minister Christ to them, we minister to their physical needs, we help train them, we help them by giving of ourselves and not looking for someone else to do something. We are not only the hands and feet of Christ, but when Jesus returns, Matthew 25 and 34, there's a reward for this. When we sow, we reap. And I've talked to you about that before. Here it is, Matthew 25:34. Come, you blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. It is God's plan. It is God's desire that we do these very things. Feed the hungry, visit the sick, go to those in prison. Why? Because they need to know that God cares, and we show the love of God by meeting their needs. Not just by saying, as it says in James, go, let it be well with you, I will pray with you, but by being the hands and feet of Jesus Christ, our King. As always, be blessed, walk with the King, be a blessing. Goodbye for now.